A mistake should have cost Emma Carter everything. A single moment of weakness, falling asleep in a billionaire CEO's bathroom, should have ended her career before it even began. But instead, that moment became the turning point of her life. She transformed humiliation into opportunity, skepticism into admiration, and an impossible dream into reality. This is the story of Emma Carter, the cleaning staff member who rose to become one of the most respected names in the culinary world, facing betrayal, scandal, and sabotage along the way. Welcome to Tales of Kindness. I'm so glad you're here, where we celebrate the power of kindness in every moment. If you enjoy this space, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps keep our community growing. Now let's go back to the story of Emma Carter. The Santorini Pearl Resort was a palace of luxury, the kind of place Emma Carter never imagined stepping foot in unless she was scrubbing its floors. As a member of the cleaning staff, her days were spent sweeping away the remnants of extravagant feasts, ensuring that the guests who walked those pristine marble floors never had to see a speck of dust. She had learned to blend into the background, to work quickly and quietly, but one fateful evening, exhaustion got the better of her. While tidying up the penthouse suite of Adrian Sinclair, the enigmatic billionaire CEO of the resort, she had made the mistake of resting for just a moment, and that moment turned into deep, undeniable sleep. When she woke up, disoriented and mortified, she expected to be fired on the spot. Instead, she found herself facing a man who wasn't angry, just curious. Adrian Sinclair was a man of power and precision. He built his empire on calculated risks and unwavering standards. And yet, something about the audacity of the young woman who had fallen asleep in his private suite intrigued him. "You're not like the others, are you?" he mused, watching her scramble to apologize. Emma wasn't sure how to respond. What was she supposed to say? That she had been working double shifts just to afford rent? That she barely had time to sleep, let alone dream of a future beyond cleaning hotel rooms? But then, as she moved to leave, something unexpected happened. Adrian noticed something about her, a spark, a presence, and in a split-second decision that would change both their lives, he made her an offer. "Stay," he said. "I want to see what you can do." That night, Emma Carter ceased being just another hotel worker. She became Adrian Sinclair's protégé. It all began with a simple but life-changing gesture. Adrian handed her a crisp white chef's coat. The fabric felt foreign against her skin, yet thrillingly symbolic. No longer was she the girl wiping down counters and taking out trash. She was stepping into a world where the scent of saffron and truffle oil danced through the air, where every dish was a work of art, and where only the best survived. Adrian didn't make it easy for her. If anything, he was relentless. He pushed her beyond her limits, testing her palate, her instincts, her ability to think on her feet. She spent hours blindfolded, tasting obscure spices and exotic ingredients until she could identify them without hesitation. She memorized the delicate balance of acids and fats, heat and timing. She endured brutal critiques and nights where exhaustion made her fingers tremble as she chopped, seared and plated. Yet Emma never faltered. She absorbed everything like a sponge, her hunger for knowledge eclipsing her fatigue, and with every challenge, she rose higher. Within weeks, she was no longer just a background figure. The guests who once ignored her now whispered about her. The chefs who once dismissed her as a cleaning girl now watched her with curiosity, some with admiration, others with jealousy. She had come too far, too fast, and not everyone was happy about it. The first signs of resentment came subtly, a missing ingredient here, a mysteriously botched reservation there. At first, Emma dismissed it as coincidence. But as the days passed, the tension in the kitchen grew thicker. Some of the senior chefs sneered when she walked by, murmuring behind her back, Others made a point to remind her that she hadn't earned her place the way they had through years of culinary school and grueling apprenticeships. "She's only here because of him," she overheard one of them say one evening, venom lacing the words. The accusation stung more than she wanted to admit. Was that how they saw her, as nothing more than Adrian Sinclair's charity case? Determined to prove them wrong, Emma threw herself even deeper into her training. She arrived before dawn and left long after the last dinner service. She took on tasks no one wanted, gutting fish, perfecting soufflés, preparing intricate sauces that required precision and patience. And she excelled. Her instincts in the kitchen were undeniable. She could tell when a dish was missing a single grain of salt, when a sauce needed an extra touch of acidity. She had an almost supernatural ability to pair flavors in ways that turned even the most skeptical heads. The murmurs in the kitchen changed. "She's got talent," one of the sous chefs admitted grudgingly. "Maybe she's more than just a pretty face," another muttered. But while some were beginning to respect her, others weren't so willing to accept her rise. It was a Friday evening, one of the busiest nights at Santorini Pearl, when the sabotage became undeniable. Emma had spent the entire day perfecting a signature dish for an exclusive tasting event, an intricate seafood creation that blended Mediterranean flavors with a bold modern twist. It was meant to be her moment, a chance to prove to the culinary elite that she was more than just a girl who got lucky. But just as the first plates were set to be served, disaster struck. The dish, her masterpiece, had been tampered with. The delicate balance of flavors had been thrown into chaos. Someone had replaced a key ingredient with an overpowering substitute, ruining the entire batch. Gasps filled the room as the first bites were taken, and the once bustling event came to an abrupt halt. Adrian moved fast. He tasted the dish himself, his face darkening as realization set in. He turned to Emma, his jaw tight. "This wasn't a mistake," he said quietly. "Someone did this on purpose." Emma's heart pounded. She knew exactly what this meant. Someone in that kitchen wanted her to fail, and they were willing to play dirty to make sure of it. But they had underestimated her. Emma Carter wasn't going down without a fight. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a news alert on her phone, a single headline that sent her world crashing down. Emma Carter, new protégé of CEO Adrian Sinclair, accused of selling secret recipes. Her breath caught in her throat as she scrolled through the accusations. Anonymous sources claimed she had leaked exclusive recipes to a rival resort in Monaco. It was a lie, a carefully crafted trap, and she knew exactly who had set it. Victoria Lancaster, a name whispered in high society circles with both admiration and fear. A woman who had built her reputation on ruthless precision and an icy, untouchable grace. She stood before Emma that evening, sipping champagne with an amused smile. "Welcome to our world," she murmured. Emma's stomach twisted. This was a power move, a way to force Adrian into a corner, make him choose between defending her and risking his own credibility. But if Victoria thought Emma would back down, she was wrong. The boardroom was cold and sterile, its silence more suffocating than the heavy air conditioning. The long glass table reflected the overhead lights, the polished surface separating Emma Carter from the people who held her fate in their hands. She sat across from the executives, their expressions unreadable as they flipped through the accusations against her. Pages rustled, eyes flicked over printed emails, and every so often, one of them would steal a glance at her, measuring, calculating, doubting. Her access to the kitchens had been revoked. An internal investigation was underway. The whispers that once skulked in the shadows had swelled into open judgment. Thief, fraud, imposter. But Emma didn't panic. She fought. With Adrian Sinclair at her side, she dismantled the accusations piece by piece, refusing to let their assumptions define her. The emails? Forged? The timestamps? Inconsistent. The wording, unlike anything she had ever written, the final, most damning proof. Her login credentials had been accessed remotely from an external source, somewhere she had never even set foot. One by one, the so-called evidences collapsed under scrutiny. The executives exchanged uneasy glances. Some shifted in their seats, others remained rigid, unwilling to let go of their skepticism so easily. Emma could see it in their eyes. Clearing her name wasn't enough. They didn't just want proof of her innocence. They wanted proof that she belonged, that she was more than just a housekeeper turned cook. And so she gave them what they needed. A blind tasting, she said, her voice cutting through the heavy silence. If I lose, I'll leave quietly. But if I win, this conversation ends here. A murmur rippled through the room. The general manager, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s, leaned forward. "Miss Carter, this isn't a game." "I know," Emma said, "and neither is my career." His mouth pressed into a thin line. He glanced at the head of the culinary department, whose arms were crossed, his expression unreadable. It was an unorthodox request, but the logic was sound. If she was the fraud they believed her to be, she would fail. But if she wasn't? The doubt in the room thickened. The older executives hesitated, wary of setting a precedent. A young woman at the far end of the table, likely one of the newer board members, nodded almost imperceptibly, intrigued by the idea. Then Adrian spoke. "It's a fair test," he said smoothly, his tone edged with authority. "You wanted proof? Let her give it to you." The general manager exhaled sharply through his nose, then turned to Emma. "Very well," he said. "The challenge will take place tomorrow afternoon." Emma's heart pounded, but she kept her face impassive. She had fought for her innocence. Now she would fight for her place. And she didn't intend to lose. The kitchen was silent, except for the sound of knives against cutting boards and the bubbling of simmering sauces. The tension in the air was suffocating, a stark contrast to the vibrant aromas that filled the space. Emma Carter stood at her station, her hands steady, her heart pounding beneath her chef's coat. Across from her, 3 seasoned chefs, chosen by the board to be her judges, took their first bites of the blind tasting challenge. The room held its breath. Forks clinked against porcelain. The judges chewed, swallowed, and exchanged glances that gave nothing away. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Then the verdict came. The results were unanimous. Emma Carter had not only proven her innocence, she had outshined the competition. The head judge, a veteran in the industry, set his fork down and looked directly at the board members. "There's no question," he said. "Miss Carter's dish wasn't just the best of the evening. It was exceptional." Murmurs erupted from the executives. Some were impressed. Others, reluctant to admit they had misjudged her, kept their expressions carefully neutral. But the most satisfying reaction came from Victoria Lancaster. Emma watched as the woman's perfect facade shattered. The revelation of her deception spread like wildfire through the boardroom. The forged emails, the planted rumors, the fabricated accusations exposed for all to see. Victoria had built her career on careful manipulation, on twisting perceptions to her advantage. But this time she had miscalculated. She had underestimated Emma, and in an instant she lost everything. Her influence, her reputation, her power, gone. Her face paled as the general manager turned to her, his expression one of cold disappointment. "Miss Lancaster," he said, his voice cutting through the whispers, "you're dismissed from your position, effective immediately." The words struck like a slap. Victoria opened her mouth, whether to protest, to beg, to salvage what little remained, but nothing came out. She had played the game, but this time she had lost. Emma had won. A rush of satisfaction coursed through her, but she forced herself to remain composed. She didn't gloat, didn't smirk. Instead, she turned to the board, her voice calm but firm. "I never wanted to fight for my integrity," she said. "I only wanted to cook." Silence. Then the general manager cleared his throat. "You've proven yourself," he admitted. "And I believe I speak for the board when I say we'd like to offer you a permanent position in the kitchen." A permanent position. Emma exhaled slowly, absorbing the weight of those words. She had stepped into this hotel as a nameless worker, invisible to those who mattered. Now she had carved her place into its very foundation. And she wasn't going anywhere. The seasons had changed, and so had Emma Carter's life. Months had passed since the scandal, but the whispers that once followed her name had transformed into something entirely different. Admiration. She was no longer just a protégée, no longer just Adrienne Sinclair's discovery. She had become a force of her own. The kitchen was now her domain, her artistry recognized not just within the walls of the Santorini Hotel, but beyond. Critics praised her for her bold flavors, her fearless reinvention of classic dishes, her ability to turn the simplest ingredients into something extraordinary. Emma Carter was a rising star. And on one quiet evening, under the golden glow of the Santorini moon, Adrienne Sinclair decided it was time. The rooftop restaurant was nearly empty, the last of the guests filtering out as the night stretched on. The waves whispered against the cliffs below, the scent of sea salt mingling with the lingering traces of dinner service. Emma stood at the edge of the terrace, gazing out at the shimmering water, unaware of what was about to happen. Adrienne, standing behind her, watched her in silence for a moment, memorizing every detail, the way her loose curls caught the soft Mediterranean breeze, the gentle rise and fall of her breath, the quiet strength in her posture. And then he took a step forward. "Emma?" he said, his voice steady, but there was something in it, something rare, something unguarded.
She turned, smiling. "Yeah?"
He took her hands in his, and that was when she felt it, his pulse, quick beneath his skin. "From the moment you fell asleep in my bathroom," he began, and Emma let out a surprised laugh. "You turned my world upside down." She rolled her eyes, shaking her head. "You're never going to let me forget that, are you?" "Never." He smiled, but then his expression softened, turning serious. "You challenged me, changed me, and I don't want to imagine my life without you." Emma's heart stilled. The realization hit her all at once. The way he was looking at her, the way his hands held hers just a little tighter, as if afraid to let go. And then he moved, slow and deliberate, lowering himself onto one knee. The world around them disappeared. "Emma Carter," he said, pulling out a small velvet box, "will you marry me?" For the first time in her life, Emma Carter was speechless. Her hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear her own breath. She had spent years fighting for recognition, for respect, for a place in a world that never wanted to give her a chance. She had clawed her way up from nothing, and now here she was, not just standing in the life she had built, but being offered something even greater. A future, a love she never expected. Tears welled in her eyes, and a breathless laugh escaped her lips. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, firmer. "Yes." Adrienne's face broke into the brightest smile she had ever seen. He slid the ring onto her finger, and in the very next moment Emma was in his arms, his lips on hers, the Santorini moon glowing above them. Because in the end, success wasn't just about talent. It was about perseverance. It was about courage. And most of all, it was about knowing what and who was worth fighting for. What do you think about Emma's story? Do you believe she deserved her chance? Let us know in the comments below. Remember, kindness has the power to change lives, one small act at a time. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell so you never miss another inspiring tale. See you next time on Tales of Kindness.